Hey friends, Christine here, and I just recently put up a few collections of stamps, and I wanted to try some techniques for getting the most authentic edging on the stamps. As a former art stamp person, I say former, I just haven't done it in a while. But I used to design stamps for an artist group, so I'm kind of picky about my edges. And so I tried a couple of different things, and I want to share them with you, what worked and what didn't, what sort of worked, so you can figure out the return on your investment of trying to get the edge to look like an authentic stamp. And a lot of you, the way that the things are cut out, or the way the things are printed, you're just going to cut them out anyway, maybe ink the edges and off you go. I mean, they look real enough. I mean, certainly they have the edge built into the print. But if you wanted to try and get a little bit more, again, authentic feel and look to them, these are some of the things I've done. So I can tell you right off, for my money, the best return on the investment is just get a pair of these little pinking scissors. They make a nice edge. It's inverted, like you might suspect from a postage stamp. Boom, you cut them out, you're done. Okay, you don't have these. What do you want to do? Well, another option is a perforating tool. Now I have this one that I've had for a gazillion years. I don't know where I got it. I'm sure you can find a tool online, and that's easy, or this is easy, because you simply find your stamp that you want to use. Grab a ruler. Let's see. We're going to take this little chipmunky guy here and just run it along each edge, as you would expect. I can't even see. This light is really bright today. And off you go. All right, so it is not an authentic corner edge, but it's, it's got some fray to it, and that's what we're going for. And it was nothing to do. Okay, pretty simple. All right, so other people have done, and I have done in the past, basically sewing machine edging, and that's fine, except the issue with all of these techniques, until I get to another one, is that we are not cutting holes out like in actual stamps. We are not cutting these little holes. We are just pushing the paper into itself. So that's why you don't get good crisp edges like you might from traditional stamps, genuine perforations, or some of these sewing machine ones. It's like, eh. But there are a couple of things you could do fairly easily. So number one is you could take it to the sewing machine. And I'm going to take this sheet to the sewing machine and sew around one of these, and then show you what I might do to help it a little bit. Okay, so I've gone and I've put some sewn holes. I went to the sewing machine with no thread in the needle or the bobbin even in, and with the stitch length, I think at 4, I've put these holes, and they're sort of right now just guiding holes for me. So now I'm going to take this tack and just make those holes bigger, just by working it into each hole that I had sewn in, sort of as my guide. You can see on the back. See, now the holes are getting bigger. Looks like I didn't hit that one. Okay, so what this should do is help us get a little bit more authentic arc there. There's this little guy down here. Let me just finish these up. So again, this is only really if you're trying to create something and the authenticity of the stamp matters. I mean, there is the scallop printed in the design. You could just cut them out straight and then and paste them on, and nobody's going to think less of you. So it's only weirdos like me for whom this matters. So it's going to be easier if I cut this. Just cut this away, but I want to leave a little on so I could do the perforation up. Okay, so from that, And now you have to be careful because we don't have that many holes. But you can see it does look a little bit like a stamp. So you want to do a fold for each. And each side. And then pull carefully so that you get the rip. There we go. Once it gets going, it's usually pretty good. Okay, I'm just going to sacrifice that stamp. All right, and now this side, same thing. And you'll also notice a difference with the grain of the paper and which way you're tearing the paper. But there we go. This one doesn't want to come off. There we go. Okay, and then last one. And again, you just want to be careful with your tears. All right, so now outside of this little guy up here, it's just going to get snipped off. You can see I do have a stamp shape, sort of, far more than I would have had if I had just sewn it and then perforated. So that's an idea. Another idea is you can make your guiding holes with one of these. If you don't have a sewing machine and you don't want to be involved in that, the only thing I'll suggest is that you use something medium hard to do this with. Because if you do it on something softer like corrugated cardboard, it just makes dashed lines and it's not perfect, but this does work. So let's just say we're going to come over here, and once you get going, you're going to go back and forth a few times. Once you start, don't pick it up, because as long as you stay on the paper, the holes will stay in the same place. You know, the teeth will go back into the holes they were. But see, now you can see that line of holes there. So ideally, actually, it's really good right on your mat, but it does not, as you can see here, heal. So if you're doing it hard enough to get the holes you want, you're going to have holes in your mat. And I really don't want that. And I tried it on a really hard plastic cutting board, and it was too hard. I couldn't get the holes big enough. So, just finish this up. And the last one. So something like a magazine seems to be just hard enough. All right, so now we can simply, in this case, just do our perforation and show you that, and then I'll show you how to go forward. Okay, and for those who don't know, this is a pattern tracing wheel of olden times. I don't know if people still use it. There must be a more high-tech way to trace patterns. I haven't sewn from a pattern in a long time, but in the past you would use that to trace over carbon paper onto the fabric from your pattern. All right, so let's pull this off. And again, it is not ideal, but it's something, and it gives some texture, and it was just and you're done. Okay, so now again, you can use the same tool instead of a sewing machine to do that very technique with the line. You make your line. We'll do it here. Remember, don't pick it up once you've started. This is going to be tricky. There we go, because it's such a little piece of paper. And go all the way around. And finally here. Okay, so now instead of simply tearing it, we are going to do that same technique with the push pin. I'm going to go through each one. Now these holes are a little closer together than those on my sewing machine. So there are a few more of them. And give me a second while we make our way. You know, in a perfect world, we would all just have perforators. Or somebody would mass produce one for your sewing machine, which actually cuts the holes out. I have seen a video, or I remember seeing a video, and this goes back a gazillion years. I'll try and find it, where somebody created, using a brass rod, a hollow brass rod, a fitting or a needle replacement that could go into your sewing machine and create an actual hole punching perforator. And there may come a time when I want one of those, so I might try and make it, and if I do, I'll share it with you. Because I am pretty picky. Particular about a lot of things, and I do like stamps, and as a artist stamp person, the idea that that edge looks more authentic than even the scallop scissors can provide, it seems worth it to me, but it may not be to everybody. Okay, so now we fold. Let me move this away here. We fold here and here, and do the little rip, and do this side, this side. So you see, again, it's more stamp-like than without the push pins. Let me get this last piece off. These little guys, when you don't leave a lot of room for the paper to tear, sometimes I grab it with tweezers, just to make life simple. Oh, I'm going to have to. And it may not even work. Let's see. No, these aren't going to be enough, so I'm going to just have to be careful. There we go. Once it gets going, it usually gives way. There. So see, I mean, that looks pretty good considering. So that was simply this guy and a push pin. Okay. Now, we have one more thing we can do, or one more thing that I know about that we can do. Let's see, let's take this one, and I'm just going to use this technique again with this because it's easy, and make my marks. All the way around. A little crooked. I'm going to have to cut these off because now we are going to use this. And this is a 1/6 hole punch. And I've had it forever. I'm going to cut off these sides too. Let me just do that now. Well, I want to leave some on here. I'm going to sacrifice because I can. Okay, so now we take the same idea is we slide it in, we line up the hole, and punch the hole in each one. Yeah, you have to be really particular if this is important enough for you to do, and certainly if you needed to do multiple stamps, I would even question your sanity, but every once in a while, that one stamp really deserves it, whether it's going to go on the cover of a journal or a special letter. I mean, who knows, right? We all have our things. So I'm going to go around and do this, and then I'll be back. Okay, so that took a minute or two, and I am going to now bend, increase, and begin my tear. All right, so now we're really getting closer to actual stampage, and that's kind of fun. So I'll be honest though, that was a real pain in the butt to do. and it's hard on the eyes, but it gives you a real stamp edge. So if you are willing to put in the time, again, on those special stamps that it really matters to you, using this little jobber and the 1/6. This is on Amazon. I'll link to it. I don't have an affiliate thing or anything, but I'll link to it so you could see it, and you could see how I did this. Now I'll ink this up so you can really see the edge. There you go. So you can see the edge there. So it looks like close to a real stamp. Now, one thing I'll mention too is you could do it on the sewing machine, and then with the spacing that I mentioned, a stitch length of 4 is on my machine. I have a Singer heavy duty, so something pretty maximum spacing, and then you can use an 1/8 inch punch like this one, and it gives a very realistic, I'll just do this one edge, kind of skipping every other. I'm going to show you here. I'm just going to tear this off. So you see here, that edge is also sort of realistic. Now I would probably come in and clean that up. You could even cut it with scissors and still get the effect, because the hole is so much bigger. But the hole is so much bigger. Where are my real stamps? So you cover more ground, but it's not quite as authentic looking. This one, my last one here, is much closer. So these are my ideas for making this little stamp activity more excruciating than it needs to be, but you get really cool things when you're done. So if you're up for it, give it a go. If you have a better idea for perforating stamps that look real and authentic and genuine, I certainly would love to know about it, and I'm sure everybody else would. And for those of you who don't already think me to be exceedingly neurotic, I'm sure this activity will prove it. See you next time. Go create, be awesome.